Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Get to Know Us. This time it's with Kelli Frances Corrado. Just yesterday on Halloween, we released her album Tuff Feathers, and it's a really beautiful album. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, I would describe it as experimental. It's vocal driven, and it just sounds magical if you listen to it. So we hope that you will check that out. And yeah, I'm gonna bring Kelli on as soon as she gets here. I think this is her first time doing a live Instagram. And so let's see here. Doot, 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 doot. I have a feeling. I'm not even sure she is on here yet. But yes, definitely check out Kelli's album. And we also actually released a video for the last track on the album, which is The Mighty Mermaid versus Murky Water. It is on our YouTube. It is also at the top of her Bandcamp page for Tuff Feathers. Hey! Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Grim?
Good, good. I was worried that maybe you were having a little trouble given that I think you said this would be your first time doing a
Yeah.
lot. Okay, I was able to invite you, so it worked out. Um, yeah, and I know. So yeah, I was just letting everybody know about releasing your album yesterday. Um, but yeah, and I know you also just had a show, and that was like the day, I think, Mischief Night Day.
I did one on the 30th. I moved to this really cool kind of log cabinish for Seattle. It's really North Seattle. And I live in a coach house, and on the first floor of it, it's kind of this empty collective music space. The main house is owned by some friends, and we just have developed it, and we decided it would be really great to do an intimate show. And since I'm not really 100% back into touring, I wanted to do something to kind of honor the release and honored the holiday. Yeah. So, and we had a really great time. We decorated it. Our thought created this big spider web. So we got one of those like lawn spider webs and decorated like the whole ceiling and some black webbing because there's lots of spiders there. So I think we kind of wanted to so yeah, it was great. It was really great.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so so I guess let's get into some things I wanted to ask you. I always love hearing about how people first got into music as a listener. So if you wanted to talk about like maybe a first album or song or just whatever you want to say.
Trying to think like the first album I bought, God, I was really young, and I bought I had heard through like a friend of mine, I had heard Donna Summer's like live More album on vinyl. So I bought that. And my dad used to play Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder.
Oh yeah.
And that just made, so fun and vibrant and just, yeah. And I love disco, so it was just, I was all about it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was how, and then the first time I like got into music as a show goer, I went to this really cool like punk rock show down the street. I grew up in Chicago, and I went to go see this band called Natsat Rebel, and it was just my first like mosh pit, and I'm like maybe 5 feet, so it was like pretty intense, but like pretty powerful at the same time. So that was really fun. I think it was with like Rights of the Accused. It was a long, I was like 13, so
Yeah.
as a musician, that like didn't happen until like to my like mid-20s. I became a musician. But anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, which is definitely what I was going to ask you next, which is sort of like when did you start writing and recording music, and how did that even come about? Like, how did you know like that was something that
Well,
you needed to do?
That actually was a pretty spiritual experience. I used to be a military wife many years ago, really long time ago. I was on the side of the mountain, a side of a mountain with my dog, like living in the countryside in Germany, and I had an out of body experience. And when I came back to my body, everything looked different and everything sounded different. And I didn't kind of really know what to do about it because I'd never like thought music was part of my makeup of who I am. And so I took lessons, I worked really hard at it. And then kind of by happenstance, I got asked to be part of this band years ago called Ambulance. And they were like, we want you to sing. And I was like, yo, I don't know if I can sing. And so I did it. Just like immediately it was like, we got great response. I was connecting to people. And then I just kind of started to pursue it. And it took me kind of years to figure out, or years to kind of take what I heard in my head into a physical form, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So when did that sort of happen for you, where you started making your solo music?
Solo music, literally probably like in 2014, 2012.
Okay,
so,
wow, that's pretty recent.
Yeah, that is really recent, like quite a while actually. And for many years I was like a way better guitar player than I am a singer. But I love the guitar, but I feel such more of a stronger affinity to singing. So it became kind of something else. So
Yeah, and I think I when I listen to your music, I feel like it's very vocal driven.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in which I relate to as well. So yeah, really cool. Yeah, so I guess like tell us a little bit about Tuff Feathers, what it's about, how it came to be. I know it was several years in the making, I think.
Yeah, it was 3 years in the making, and it was literally like the week of COVID when I was supposed to go in the studio and finish it. And the engineer that I work with, who's like a brother to me, and we've been working together for years, I was like, look, I know it's COVID and or this starting at crazy time, and I don't know what's going on, and let's just kind of go into the studio and work on it. And we did. We did one more session, and then I thought it was done, but I'm sure you've had this experience too as a songwriter. Like, you think something's done, but the more you listen to it or the more you meditate on it, you start to tweak it, and it becomes kind of like, music and art has a life of its own, and you have to stay true, I think, to that sound.
Yeah.
That's how it came, like, in the physical form. I mean, 3 years in the making, and it really just documents a time where touring became more a part of my life, and intentionally seeking out community and people that I related to more. My boundaries in my personal life got a lot stronger. So it's just, and if I think like an overall theme of Tuff Feathers, it's just about finding strength through vulnerability, like the vulnerability of like the pandemic, then like a Trumpism or whatever the fuck all that was, and like, or still is, or whatever all that is over here. Just kind of finding strength within yourself and coming together with other like-minded people. Well, I think I just covered 6 topics. I don't even know how to made it.
Yeah. Just to tell us a little bit about, Tuff Feathers. And I know you said, so basically you thought it was done, and then it took you a couple years till you really decide like, oh, this is now actually a completed album.
I have this kind of interesting I think it's interesting relationship with sound where, do you know what an EVP is?
No.
So it's an acronym for an electronic voice phenomenon. It's kind of like when you make a sound, say you're playing an instrument or you hear a sound, but then there's actually like some other interference, maybe like a light starts moving, or it's a kind of a spiritual, I look at it as a spiritual interference of sound.
Yeah.
And things that I believe in, like, my guide started doing this kind of wild thing where I would be on a Zoom call or I'd be on the internet, and I don't really store music on my computer per se, but I would be doing something, and all of a sudden I did have Tuff Feathers on the album or on my computer because I've been working on it, and all of a sudden like one song kept popping up at random moments that I was like, well, this is odd. Like, so Like, for example, What Direction is Heaven on Earth actually went through like 3 different variations before it became what it is. So I have kind of, I call them electronic voice phenomenons, like spiritual sound interference. And I start to feel like that's guiding it more. Like I get it to a particular place with the arrangement and the initial idea, and then it kind of went from there. Did that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, so you had different experiences where it compelled you to go back and rework
Yeah,
a couple of the songs on the album. Yeah, that's really interesting.
absolutely. Like, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you a little bit about, because I know you also intentionally, um, from your grandmother, you learned about music and the key of music affecting emotions or spirituality or whatnot. I guess I don't know what I'm saying, if I'm saying it accurately, but if you could tell us a little bit about that in regards to the album and the songs.
I know it may come across vague, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but and it's not necessarily like she sat me down and was like, "This is in the key of this, and this is in the key of that." And it was, my grandma was pretty incredible, and my whole life, ever since a kid, she would sit me down with these particular prayers that she had, and she would show me what the prayers were. She'd make me go like recite the prayers, and then she would say, "Okay, this prayer is for this person in the family, and I want you to focus on sending them like love while you're doing this." And I did it for years as a kid, and I didn't really think anything about it. And then a couple years before she passed, she said to me, she said, "I want you to know that when I pass, I'm going to send you my energy to do, and I want you to take notes." And I was like, "All right, whatever, Grandma." Like, I didn't really, I was like, "Okay, cool." And then the week before she passed away, I got all of them in the mail. And it was kind
Oh,
of like,
wow.
yeah, it was kind of an eerie moment, because I was like, and she lived till she was 98, and she was very coherent, like, for all of her life.
Yeah.
So, so that was when I got that, I was like, okay, I guess this is that moment. And then I started to kind of, at the same time, I was becoming a musician. So I started to notice that the correlation for some of the prayers that she gave me, and she also connected a lot with saints, but saints not in necessarily like, she looked at saints not necessarily like kind of this strict Christian belief system, but more looked at it like these are normal people who've accomplished and like touched into or tapped into like energy, and how I identify it. It was like her language. And I think it was also part of like the cultural background, because I am part Bohemian Czech, which is also part Romani. And I think
Hmm.
what she told me as well, it has come a lot from that culture. So, and she came over here on the boat, like with my grandparents. So
Hmm.
she was Czech. So,
Yeah.
so, so what I did is it showed me like these different saints or different angels and guides. And so I started to go, okay, well, music is my like music is what I do and what I'm here to do. And so I started to integrate kind of the belief system. And I'm like, how can I do these prayers in a musical way? So I just started to research it, and I started to find out like, oh, this saint or this angel connects with the key of C. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so I know the relative minor of C is A minor. Oh, I can use that. So I started to think about it that way and kind of
Hmm.
develop language from it. And then, so for example, like, let's see, like, What Direction is Heaven on Earth is written in the key of E minor, and then like that is supposed to evoke, like, that's where some people like the center point of your body is. Like, some people refer to it as the third chakra, or some people refer to it as the ladder between heaven and earth. And I
Hmm.
really love that idea, like the ladder between heaven and earth, like the mind body balance, the connection, and like finding that, because when we're afraid or we feel weak, I'm using the proverbial we, but like we immediately go to fear. And so I focus a lot, and with Tuff Feathers specifically, I focus a lot with bringing both of those. I wanted to bring both of those together and kind of sit in that place.
Yeah,
So
it's really interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
did I lose you? Good. I'm glad I didn't lose you.
Yeah, that will be good at doing it this way. I figured out on my phone that I forgot to, so it's like closing every 30 seconds.
Oh,
So,
I see. Okay.
you don't mind, can I take a second and change that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, hold on a second.
I'm sure Kelly will be coming back here in a moment. Um, she is trying to fix. Yeah, cool. You're back. Yes.
Some of my, yeah, technological skills. But
Uh, it wouldn't be a Instagram live uh, if without there being technical problems. That's what I've found to be the case pretty much every time. Yeah, so I guess if, I wanted to see if there were any other like influences that you wanted to talk about in regards to your music, whether they're musical influences or other things, whatever it is that you might want to mention.
I thought about it with everybody work that I do, I try to do something artistically technical, like I try to push myself. And with this album, I really wanted to make it as sort of as stripped down as I can go, where I'm not hiding behind a wall of sound or my vocals like aren't at the same level as the music. Like I really wanted to push myself. And so Kate Bush, and I know you and I've talked about, how much we love Kate Bush. And also I thought about it some more. Odetta. I don't know if you're familiar with the folk singer.
Yes.
She was so amazing to me because she would just, sing with no other instrumentation, just completely a cappella, and the power behind that and the melody and the energy. Like, and so for this album, I really tried to go as minimal as possible because I wanted to also be as vulnerable as possible and kind of communicate these ideas.
Yeah, yeah, that's really great. I think that definitely comes across in the album.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful album.
Thanks.
Um, yeah, and is there anything that you are listening to right now, like that you want to talk about?
Well, I just listened to your one of your albums, Resurrected. So
Oh
that
yeah.
I was and your use of like electronics and vocals is really cool. So that's the most recent thing that I listened
Oh geez, thank you. Well, that's quite an honor that you listen to my
to.
music live.
I'm a Grimaldi fan, so I'm so like grateful to be connected. And I do. I listen to music off of Grimalkin all the time, and I'm not just even saying that. Like, I feel like it's some of the best underground music, and it's so emotionally strong and interesting and complex.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with you there.
Totally.
Um, yeah, yeah, so I guess as you know, our tape proceeds, we always ask our artists to pick either a person in need of mutual aid or an organization that's working um, in mutual aid and supporting their local communities. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Star Farms in Chicago. I know that's where the tape proceeds are going. If there was anything you wanted to say about their work or why you chose them, yeah, and any other mutual aid that might even be happening in Seattle, since
Yeah.
where close to you.
Yeah. I chose Star Farms. Well, so my brother, one of my brothers, and my dad, about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, bought a blueberry farm in Michigan, and which is hours north of where they live in Chicago, and they converted it into being organic. And then through that process, I've been learning through them just about, and I try to eat really healthy in general, and I believe in organics and being healthy. And I've just been learning from them and like seeing how important that is, not only like as a personal, but what it does to a community. And so when you have a city like Chicago, where I'm from and so connected to still, you have this urban place, right? And already in the United States, how we like get rid of food is pretty terrible in how we deal with that. And so Star Farms is a great organization that my brother educated me on that holds classes. It does urban farming. It also helps people get job skills. They also do like farm to table meals for the holidays, which I haven't done yet, which I would love to do. But like they had a really cool one for Halloween that would have been probably really great. But and they're just all about, it's like, and it's in the inner city of Chicago, which is can be a pretty intense place. So it's trying to bring this positivity and teaching people how to take care of themselves and giving them skills and giving them work and food. So I was really moved by their mission, and so I thought that would be perfect to send this what I can to them and to support that.
Yeah, yeah, and everybody can check out their work on their website. And yeah, I will tag them in this video
Yeah.
then later. But what about anything going on that you know about where you are locally now?
I mean, trying to Seattle is really Seattle's one of the reasons I kind of go back and forth with being here. Like I live in, I grew up in Chicago and I'm so connected. And when I'm touring, like that is where I am, that part of the world. But like Seattle is such an interesting place because one of the things that I find that's really unique about it is that it has a really strong support network for artists. Like it has, for a year, not currently, years I lived in what was like rent controlled housing for artists, which is really
Hmm.
unique. Support
Yeah.
artists. Seattle is on par with New York and like San Francisco for like housing. It's really expensive. So
Yeah.
it has that. It had there's a great organization that I'm connected to called the Creative Advantage Program, and that is a program that helps teaching artists get work. So that's a great grassroots. I mean, how do you define grassroots organizations? Like I don't know. Like what's the definition for it? Is it something like outside of like something large like Planned Parenthood, because I'm like their biggest fan too.
Yeah, I suppose that Planned Parenthood does grassroots organizing too. It's just like to me, it's just like people coming together and you're kind of starting from the ground up. It's sort of ground from bottom up versus top down, I guess, and you're in terms of organizing, kind of like,
Okay.
you might be literally going door to door, or you might be going like person to person, like and passing out information and trying to get people to organize around whatever it is that you're working on. So that's how I would describe
Okay.
grassroots organizing.
Yeah, I
But
wasn't
yeah,
definition like because I'm like I said, I'm a big like plan, all about healthcare and taking care of our health, whether it's through food or through access to healthcare. So
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, and just mutual aid just tends to be more like if it's more community based and helping out the folks in your local community, whether it's like doing a food drive or a clothing drive or just even like getting, talking to everybody in your community about raising funds maybe to support somebody that needs something, like whether it be healthcare needs or food or whatever. Um, versus like, I guess like, yeah, I mean, yeah, Planned Parenthood's awesome and everything. I'm not going to talking poorly about them, but they're also like a very, they're a pretty large
right.
organization. It's not, yeah, yeah, it's just a little bit different. Um,
I'm
but
also
yeah,
about that and like what like grassroots means and like social justice and just kind of implementing it in community as well. So I'm continually
yeah,
being um,
yeah. Well, I am not an expert, so I gave what
I, you
the way
have
I see it.
a
So
experience and you do Grimalkin does such amazing work and you've probably met and learned about so many different organizations.
yeah, I mean, one of our goals is to sort of build more personal connections with different grassroots and mutual aid organizations, so that we kind of have like building on a network of support. And especially since we like release artists from all over, the more that we can build that network, the more we can also and are aware of what different organizations are doing, and like especially like local, more smaller and local community based organizations, that we can then also like connect people and when they do need something, in their
That's amazing. Yeah.
so we're hoping to keep building on that. it is difficult to do though when everybody's spread out and you don't know people personally, but yeah, we are attempting at building those networks better and so forth. Um, but yeah, actually, I wanted to um, ask about also let's just shift it to the music scene or the music business or the music because you are you you are I'm not talking right today. You're a
No,
teacher, a music teacher. So you probably have a different perspective too on sort of like that aspect of the music business and scene and local scene, but I'm always interested in hearing what people's thoughts are about either things that are going really well in their local music scenes or things that they think could be better, and then also in terms of like the music industry or music business at large, like what what are some things that you would want to see changed or see differently?
it's so interesting how I have learned in the last few years, especially with touring, like how different areas really do things differently, which sounds kind of obvious. But like for one example, like I performed and did a lot of stuff in Seattle for a long time. And Seattle is, like I was saying earlier, has these organizations where it's like rent controlled housing for artists. There's lots of grants available. Like you can get a grant to have like help pay your electric bill, for being an artist, which, and those things are like basic necessities, which are
Yeah,
amazing. But what's interesting to me, or the flip side of that, or the other side of that with Seattle, Seattle is a really musically genre segregated city. And this is not something that like it's just an idea of mine. It's like I've talked to this with many musicians. It's like there's no overlap really. Like it's getting better, but like all the metal people play here, all the like electronic stuff is here, and the experimental stuff here, and the songwriting stuff is there. And so for years I would get asked to play these shows, and the only thing I would see in common was maybe like everybody was like female identifying or non-binary, and that was it. That was like the like music wise, there was nothing else in common, which is cool, and I'm totally down for. But after a while, I was like, what? Well, I use different kinds of like electronic music, or sometimes my music can get kind of heavy, but those other communities, like, or other venues would not be open to it. They would be like, we like your music, but it just doesn't fit here. And so
yeah,
I started to become part, like when I started to tour, it's a whole other world. Like in New York, like they thrive on like, okay, we want hip hop, we want you, and we want like a rock band. Like they're all about, and that's the East Coast. And I noticed the Midwest is the same, and a little bit of the South that I've been to. Like they're interested more in diversifying what genre means. And so
yeah,
branched out. And so that's a kind of a strange thing that I've only really seen unique to Seattle. And I feel like it's kind of unfortunate because I mean it becomes about this categorization of the venue, because the venue, there's a lot. One of the things I'd like to see, because I don't want to get too far off on a tangent on this, but I would love more more diversified promoters and bookers than I do.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
a lot.
That's true everywhere. We,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's like in general. Like in
yeah,
general, that's just because that they have like people will have particular leanings. Like my partner who identifies as male, they'll play a show, they're a musician as well, and they play heavier music, and they'll play a show and they'll be like, wow, everybody here is male and this weirds me out, and like has had to start to ask for shows to be more diversified. And I think that's really great, because that starts with the music, like that starts with the musician, right? So if the musician is requesting that, that's great. That's like the starting point. But a lot of booking agents as well. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
And just in
know.
terms of also like lineup, I like going to shows where I'm going to see a bunch of different
Right.
sounds in the same night. And then I've also heard other people say, no, it's harder then because people are usually going to a place for a specific sound and then they don't get that when that happens. But I I don't know. I know that whenever I've booked shows, I tend to want to mix it up. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
I find it more interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I get that. I don't necessarily like have Zydeco music, a cover band, and a metal band, but maybe not that extreme. But if you have like, for example, like I have found a lot of the electronic community here in Seattle, and I have played electronic shows and some of the venues here, but I find that they'll be like, "Oh, but you sing, you have vocals," and I'll be like, "What do you mean? All this electronics?" They're like, "Oh, it's like they'll split that." Same thing kind of with
Yeah.
experimental music, which is weird to me because yeah, I feel like I'm pretty experimental with what I do. So
Yeah, I think so. Are you saying the experimental shows have tend to have no vocals? Is that what you're saying?
that's totally what I'm saying, and that's
Oh,
very specific to Seattle. I mean, when you had
I
asked me that,
see.
yeah, like I actually don't find that anywhere else, or I haven't found that anywhere else. So
Yeah, yeah. I think in Richmond anyway, that having like mixed lineup is pretty normal. I mean, there's definitely shows also that will be like, you know, pop punk or
right.
hardcore or whatever, but I don't think it's pretty common though to have the mix lineups on the shows. Um yeah, what is are you planning any other shows or what's going on too with like the situation with the pandemic there and like how is that
um,
um
well, shows here have been using Vax cards. I did go to one show
good.
at a like regular like venue, and it was a little weird. They had a lot more people in there than I thought, and I'm vaxxed, and people like started taking off their masks, and I was like, wow, this is packed out. They're taking off their masks, and then there's like, I felt so bad for the singer because I was like, oh my god, like you're using all of this and like all these, yeah, it was weird. So I personally, and then I did a show in like a month ago or 3 weeks ago in Milwaukee, which was great. It was an outdoor show. And I personally am hoping, and my intuition has kind of been telling me all along that I'll be able to tour like next spring. And then I'm probably going to go out for like a year because I'm like kind of freaking out that I'm not. But yeah, internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope things get better. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've started, so I haven't booked any shows or played any shows in real life at all since obviously since the beginning of the pandemic or whatnot. But I'm starting to think about it, like if a venue will do Vax cards and with ID,
Sure.
maybe yeah, I don't know, because I'm also like kind of there's just something that you get from playing live that you just can't, and also in terms of like community building and whatnot, and what with everything that Grimalkin's doing, it's really hard. Like things are just so much easier to like meet people and get out the word more about what we're doing, and also see other artists who are playing, when we could do that in real life. But it's just so much harder to do,
Right.
you know. I don't know. There's just something that you lose from not being able to play live. And also I was, it took me so long in my life to play out. And it was like, I didn't make that like, I didn't dive into that whole thing until January of 2019.
No,
And
you,
so, I know, so it's really funny because the last time I played live, I felt the best ever about like where I was finally like, oh, I'm starting to finally feel more comfortable with this. It was like it was the very beginning of March 2020, and I was starting to actually, yeah, really enjoying it, feeling like I was getting better and sounding better, and I was just doing very stripped down shows of just guitar and singing. But I was finally like at the point where I was like, okay, I think I can start incorporating other aspects into my live sets, and and then the pandemic happens. I was like, like, so now it's like I feel like I won't have to start at ground one again when I play,
right.
but I definitely am gonna have to like get acclimated again. And like it's just so terrifying to play in front of people live, and just like kind of just getting more comfortable in your own skin doing that, it takes a bit of time. Like,
Oh, it takes
I don't know
so much.
how it was for you, but
It takes so much vulnerability and like focus, and I got obsessed by just like making sure all my gear is all set up and like learning how to do sound and like being able to, I wanted to get so good at doing that so that if I went to a venue I could just do it if I needed to or explain it to somebody. But before we talk about me, I wanted, like, you must be so, are you just like, oh my god, I want to play, like I want to go on tour for like months? Are you feeling like,
well, well, not on tour because I've never been on tour. But I don't know if I would enjoy going on tour. I kind of feel like I'm like just like that was like a young, I know it's terrible to say, but somebody in my, if the me of my 20s would have thought that was cool if I had ever had the nerve to do it back then. But now I just sort of feel like I just want to like go home after a show, right? Like a show, like crawl in the bed. But I am itching to like just play locally, and just get out again. I don't know. Like I will. I won't say I'll never tour. I guess it's just sort of like now I'm just sort of in a position where I'm like, will people really be safe touring ever again? I hope so. But I'm definitely itching to play. Like I also feel like well, it made me stretch and grow as an artist and a musician in ways that I hadn't even thought of.
that's
Um, and so I just think that for that reason alone, it doesn't have to be touring. I just need to do it live in front of people. Me playing in Richmond and occasionally like Norfolk, that basically is where I played mainly in Richmond. I mean, that's like good enough for me, but like for now anyway. But yeah, just definitely want to do it again. It's just like you
yeah.
just lose something. I feel like I've lost something. I mean, in some ways, it helped. The pandemic has helped. I'm sure the same with you. It's kind of helped you shift your focus and sort of like artistically, maybe you approach things differently, um, and think about things differently. Um, I mean, just questioning everything pretty much when the pandemic started. So, and I lost my job, and so there were so many huge changes in my life from it. But just getting back on the horse again, I feel like it's like it's scary, but it's so rewarding too. So, and just doing an online show just isn't the same. I
It,
mean,
it is. Oh, I know. I did a couple. Like I did one with Rhizome out of DC, and they're so great too. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're like a DIY house that's been there forever. So if you ever just
okay,
that area, I mean, I can send you some contacts. But
yeah.
um, I did a live stream with them, which was really fun. But at the same time, afterwards, I was like, like I'm all dressed up in my house, like playing. There we go. And not that I need, I mean, I am a Leo rising, but not that I need that total validation. But there's like an energy exchange that happens.
Yeah, oh, there totally is. Yeah. That's
Just
that's what's not missing. You don't there's no two-way. It is I think it is reciprocal when you play live. There is something
it absolutely
I,
is.
that doesn't translate. I mean, even if people are commenting, it's like it's really hard for me anyway. I can't to even just be reading comments while I'm trying, I'm trying to play.
I can't, like, I have a hard time on stage just looking at people because I go so inward.
I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not really like looking at anybody when I play live, but in front of people. But it's like I don't know. There's something about the energy, like you said, of
Yeah.
them. Like you can tell, like if people are like engaged, and it's yeah. I don't know. It's just different. Whereas like I mean, I have nothing against. I actually hope that online shows stay just for
Yeah,
accessibility, especially if venues can
absolutely.
work can work it in. So it's not that I don't think that there's I mean I think they should stick around and they have
Oh no,
they're important. It's just like as the artist when that's your only viewership coming to you, it's like it's just almost like you could be playing just by yourself. Like it wouldn't you don't get that energy back that you get, in a live situation in real life or whatever. Yeah.
it was interesting on Saturday when I did the live show. It's my second or third live show. I played like a really cool art walk a couple weeks ago too, But it was interesting, like we brought people into the space I was saying earlier. But it's also the space where I create and play. And so I
Hmm. Yeah.
ability as well. Like all of a sudden people are in and like maybe like the second or third song in, I was like, wow, so everybody's kind of like in my sacred space. Okay. Like, whoa. And that was a really cool vulnerability to open or to embrace. Like the most
Yeah.
the most I had this really interesting and wonderful experience. My really good ritual revival, Melissa Gonzalez. We have this separate project called Astral Well, which we do these guided meditations. But her and I hosted and organized a benefit at this really cool female identifying spa. Here, it's like a small space which has like pools and like a sauna and steam room. And we did a benefit for Planned Parenthood, and it was like a small event. It was a fundraiser, and we had like local folks like donate things. But I had this moment with it that was so powerful and intimidating. But I sang in this room, and everybody was naked, like in a pool, like watching me play my auto harp. And I had some clothes on because it's really difficult to wear an auto harp and not have clothes on. But it'll anyway. But it was powerful, like intense, vulnerable moment that I didn't realize.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds crazy.
It's really amazing. Like the feminine energy in it
Yeah.
was, and it was also like non-binary folks as well. But it was like the empowering energy was like whoa, like that was another thing. And I actually love the unpredictableness of shows like that. Like you kind of walk into it and you're like the unexpected. Like I kind of thrive. Like I really love that because that's real, right? Like that's
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. With shows, you have no idea how
yeah,
a show is going to go. You don't know who's going to show up or what might happen. Like,
yeah,
with other bands that are
right.
playing. So, yeah, yeah. All of that it's. I don't know. There's just even though it's all very nerve-wracking, I was surprised to find that I actually really enjoyed it. I say surprised just because it's terrifying for me to try playing out in the first place, but just that whole. I think that's part of it is like the thrill of not
Right.
knowing, and just sort of putting yourself out there in that really vulnerable way. Um,
And seeing
there's
like
something really exciting about it and rewarding. So,
yeah, and like what I don't know about you, but like for me, when I used to do like specific sets, and now I kind of walk into it where I'll feel the room out before I play, and I'll meditate on it for just like maybe a few seconds, but I'll have like maybe 10 songs, and I'll pull maybe like 4 or 5 of them that I think will be perfect for the night.
oh,
And I
that's a great idea to approach it. No, I've never done that. I've usually just had like the set, like I knew what I was going to play beforehand.
whoa, there we go. Sorry about that. But I over the years I initially started off with very specific sets for myself, but I found like it didn't for me it didn't always work with the energy of the room. So I'll like
Yeah.
meditate and kind of think about what I want to do. Or do you ever do things where you're like, I want to play this one song because it makes me feel empowered before I get into everything, or it makes me feel
Oh,
this,
yeah.
so I'm gonna share. Oh, so you know what I'm like without
Like,
exposing.
well, there are at least like there are some songs that I would always typically start with just because for whatever reason they were most comfortable for me,
Right.
kind of thing. But not necessarily change it up. No, I've never really changed anything up just because, again, was very new to playing out live. So even though I've been making music for 25 some years, it took
Yeah.
me only until like, it took me till 2019 to like even try and do it live. Like I actually would say I am never playing my music live. Like I would say that. I've said that.
But but like it's like I don't know if you have any tattoos, but it's kind of like that. Like once you get one, it's like oh, you want another one. Like it has that like addictive energy to it. Oh, for
It
sure.
does. It does. Yeah, actually, I agree with that because I felt like the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it, the more I felt
Right.
better about it. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I didn't come up with that idea. I think I'm a Jack White fan, and I heard that he did that before. Like the last place I lived, his drum tech lived like 2 doors down from me in Seattle, and so I would just hear about some of like the processes of creating and how the shows would go and stuff. I'd hear some of those details, and one of the things is Jack White never has a set. He has like a wheelhouse of like 20 songs, and he just goes on stage and plays whatever he's feeling at that. And I was like, that's an incredible, not only it's really challenging as an artist to just be present in the room and like whatever you're feeling. And then I was like, and then I thought about something, I'm like, wow, that's definitely about that even exchange between audience and like performer. I haven't gotten to that level yet, but I would love to.
I know, that's what I was gonna say. That's goals. Those are goals right there. For me, it would just be even just reading the room like well to pick out the songs that I would play or whatnot. I wasn't like I said, I was just at the point right before the pandemic of like, trying to, because if you listen, most of my albums have a lot of other stuff going on other than just guitar and singing, or sometimes there's no guitar, but so like I just like trying to figuring out how to incorporate more of the experimental stuff that I do and whatnot into the show, and that's what I was thinking about. But so hopefully I'll get that I'll get that chance again. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I've actually reached out to a couple of venues who had expressed interest in the past too with us. We had a show lined up at the Camel right before the pandemic, and then I don't know, Eli had gotten in contact with another venue here in Richmond, the Canal Club and whatnot. So just kind of like I don't even know who's even really doing stuff right now. So I was just kind of in the process right now of just seeing like what's happening and what's the situation with the protocols. Because I think in Virginia, if they leave it up to the business to decide on that such stuff, I think. So just making sure that there's protocols and feeling like, but I'm leaning now towards like, okay, maybe we should book a show again and see what happens.
Well, let me know. Like, I just need, let me know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so yeah, I was like, it'd be really great also to do like a Grimalkin showcase type show. I know. I had this dream before, everything happened with the pandemic, but like eventually we would have some sort of like Grimalkin festival where it would actually be like Richmond, Philly, and Baltimore. But now like it would even be cool to extend it to like New York and DC. But I mean, I'm getting way ahead of myself. I think we just need to try and do something just in Richmond and see how that goes. Yeah.
Really, like, it seems like a really strong possibility. I mean, I'm also just in that one show that I played in Milwaukee, and just from talking to people like all over the place, like people want to see shows. Like, I want to see shows. Like, it's not just being a performer. Like, I want that interaction as well. And there are so many people who are just wanting that social.
Yeah. But the dilemma is just like to do it safely, and is it really safe?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what's scary for me.
No, absolutely.
Because even if, like you said, even if they say Vax card and ID, everybody with their masks off, like you can't really like, because that is what's going to happen.
It depends. I mean, this particular venue that I went to, I was surprised how they packed it out. Because I went to go see the Cave Singers, who are a great like local folky rock band here, and like they had 2 or 3 nights at this venue, and I was like, oh, that's cool. They're gonna spread it out. That's why they're playing a couple of nights. The one night, and then when I went in there, I was like, my friend and I were like, yo, we're gonna go. They had an area where you could stand outside, like a beer garden-ish. We just kind of stood outside and listened to the music, because at one point we were like, whoa.
Yeah.
If there was like a third less people, I would have been completely fine.
Yeah, so I guess that would be the other question to ask venues too, is like what are your guidelines on like how many people? Because I feel like that's a key factor too, is like controlling how many people. I mean, if you could do it outside, even better, but most venues. And now it's starting to get colder, so it's going to be harder to do that, at least over here.
Oh, here it's
So
gold for sure.
yeah. So, but yeah, I guess we'll see. But you'll definitely have to come to Richmond sometime. When
I
that,
would, oh, I
yeah,
would,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's been really awesome.
Yeah, great.
Talking to you, Kelly. Yeah. And for those who are maybe just watching now, yeah, Kelly's album, Tuff Feathers, is out yesterday on Halloween, and you can get it on our Bandcamp. And we are having a listening party and chat with Kelly tonight on our Discord. And if you want to join us, you can go to our link tree in our bio, and there's a link for our Discord on how to join. And yeah, I hope that people come out tonight to listen to your album and chat with us and have fun. But yeah, all right, cool. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we go? And then I'll definitely see you tonight. Oh, it's at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tonight is the listening party and chat. Yeah.
There's nothing else that I can think of other than support Grimalkin.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Work, like, grateful to be connected with you, and be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for all your support. Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in supporting us, there's information about how to join us as a Bandcamp monthly sub or be a patron on Patreon. But yeah, please come out tonight and support Kelly's new album. And it's at 7 o'clock tonight Eastern Standard Time, and the link's in our bio to our Discord. All right, awesome. Well, then I will talk to you soon, Kelly. See you a
All
little bit later. Okay, you take care. Bye.
right. Bye.